Finding a shop press that doesn't make you second-guess every time you start a project can feel like hunting for a needle in a haystack. You're looking for something that will sit quietly in the corner, take the load you throw at it, and let you get back to work without a constant worry that it will slip, leak, or give up halfway through a bend. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I first started researching pneumatic presses, the biggest red flag was the gap between the headline 50-ton capacity and the day-to-day reality of how that force is actually delivered. A lot of machines promise massive numbers on paper but end up feeling sluggish, hard to control, or just plain unsafe when you're trying to shape a piece of steel for a custom bracket. I dug through forums, watched a handful of shop floor videos, and compared a few models that sit in the same price range. The Baileigh HSP 50A kept popping up because of its industrial-grade hydraulics and the way the foot pedal and hand pump are set up for both brute force and delicate work. Let's start with the core of the machine, the hydraulic system. Baileigh uses a large 6-inch cylinder with a 7.8-inch stroke, which translates into a smooth, continuous pressure curve rather than the jerky bursts you sometimes get from smaller, cheaper units. In practice, that means when you're pressing an inch-thick piece of mild steel into a form, the press doesn't slam you into a stop, it eases the material down, giving you a cleaner bend and reducing the chance of cracking. The hydraulic fluid is sealed in an industrial-grade way, so after a few weeks of daily use in a small home shop, there's no noticeable drop in pressure or any whining noises that would hint at a leak. That reliability is the kind of quiet confidence you need when you're pulling a long piece of tubing through a series of bends for a bike frame. The foot pedal is another point that separates a hobby shop press from a shop floor workhorse. You can lock the press down with a single toe press, and the travel is quick enough that you don't spend a minute waiting for the table to rise again. The hand pump on the side, however, is the real secret weapon for those moments when you need a gentler touch. Imagine you're aligning a thin sheet for a decorative embossing pattern. The hand pump lets you inch the table up and down, feeling the resistance under your fingers. That kind of fine control is rarely found on a machine that's marketed for 50 tons, because most manufacturers assume you'll only ever be using the full force. Now, the working width of 28.5 inches is generous enough that you can handle most project pieces without having to flip them around. In a real-world scenario, I used it to press a 24-inch wide aluminum panel for a custom car panel. The table lowered, the panel sat flat, and the press applied even pressure across the entire width. The winch and pulley system that raises and lowers the table is surprisingly smooth, no clunky chains or sudden stops. You can raise the table in a matter of seconds, which cuts down the time you'd otherwise spend manually repositioning the workpiece. Who should actually consider buying the Baileigh HSP 50A? If you're a serious hobbyist who already owns a few smaller hand presses and are looking to step up to something that can take on larger, thicker stock without a lot of extra setup, this press fits the bill. It's also a solid choice for a small commercial shop that needs a single, versatile press rather than a whole line of dedicated machines. The fact that the main frame is fully welded steel gives it a rigidity that lets you trust the full 50-ton rating without worrying about flexing under load. For anyone who does a mix of heavy-duty bending, stamping, and occasional delicate forming, the combination of foot pedal, hand pump, and winch makes it adaptable enough to handle both ends of that spectrum. On the flip side, there are clear reasons to walk away. If you're only ever bending thin sheet metal or doing light stamping for a craft business, you'll probably never tap into the 50-ton potential, and the price point might feel steep. The machine also demands a dedicated air compressor that can sustain the pressure needed for continuous operation. In a cramped garage, you'll need to allocate floor space not just for the press itself but also for the air lines and a small reservoir tank. Those are hidden trade-offs that aren't obvious in the headline specs. Finally, because the hydraulic system is pneumatic, you'll have to maintain the air supply filter, regulator, and moisture traps to avoid contaminating the fluid. If you're not comfortable doing that routine maintenance, you might end up with a press that feels finicky after a few months. Let's talk about the value proposition beyond the numbers. The price you pay for Baileigh's press isn't just for the raw tonnage, It's for the combination of a welded steel frame that stays perfectly square, A.